Alrighty, so we got Donald Cerrone versus Alex Morono. So Alex Morono coming in as a late notice replacement for Diego Sanchez, who unfortunately couldn't make it to the fight. But, a good replacement in Alex Morono. He's going to bring it. He's going to bring it. And all signs show that this should be a very entertaining fight. So Donald Cerrone, he's 38 now. He's getting up there in age, obviously. Retirement looming. I know he doesn't want to retire, but, it's got to be soon. But he's still looking good. He's still looking okay out there. And he's got a 2-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage over Alex Morono. Both these guys are in a little bit of a slump. Morono losing 2 of his last 3, and Cerrone, he hasn't won in 5 fights. His last fight was a draw, but without that eye poke, he would have lost that fight. And, it's been 2 years since his last win, but that was a very good win. That was a good win in Al Iaquinta. He dominated Al. So, he can still keep up. That was 2 years ago, but he looked really good in that fight, and he has looked okay in recent fights. That Pettis decision could have gone either way, honestly. I thought he won, but, it is what it is. And, yeah, he's faced solid competition, much better competition than the level of Alex Morono. So, we'll get into the striking. So, both these guys stand very tall. Alex Morono comes in with that boxing-heavy style these days. He comes from that Taekwondo background or something like that, but lately, he's just been moving around a lot, light on his feet, and mostly just boxing combinations. And he tends to wing a lot of his punches, but when he straightens things up, he actually has a lot more success. But it's just generally not his style. His style is to plant and swing. And that could be trouble with the Muay Thai foundation of Donald Cerrone. Because when he punches, his punches are just straight. So it's the jab, the 1-2, the 1-2-1 blitz. A lot of his stuff is down the pipe. And, he's going to be beating Morono to the punch if he's going to throw these wild overhands. If he just pops the jab out, he's going to be beating Alex Morono to the punch every single time. And Morono has eaten jabs in the past like they're nothing. And his head is kind of there to be jabbed. He just keeps it on the center line. You just pop the jab out, you can pretty much just snap his head back every time. And he does have that predictable movement. He kind of just follows you around the cage. That was probably most obvious in his Pettis fight, where he just followed Pettis around the cage and was just constantly letting Pettis get the outside foot so he could just smash those body kicks in. Cerrone's not too much of a stance switcher. He will go for a switch high kick or a switch body kick. He'll do that with the lead leg, and I feel like that could be a good weapon against Morono, who keeps that high guarded. And if you keep landing that, then just go up high and you might catch him with the high kick. He has been caught with high kicks in the past. But also, Cerrone has mixed in low calf kicks into his game a bit. He used to throw them to the thigh, but now he'll throw them low calf. He'll do that against orthodox fighters. So that's good that he's mixed that into his game. Obviously still improving, still working very hard on his game as a whole. But one thing he's been very good at his whole career is mixing in his kicks with his punches and making them all flow together. He has very fluid combinations. And what I mean by that is that he will react to what the opponent is doing, and that's where his next strike is going to be. The best example of that is the Rick Story finish and the combination there. So I think he went jab, straight right to the body, jab as Rick Story is leaning over to his left, and then he finishes it with the high kick. So everything was setting up the next punch. So when he threw the jab, he knew Rick Story was going to slip to his left, and then he threw the straight right. And then, eventually he got the read of how far Rick Story was leaning to his left, and then pushed him over with the jab, and then followed up with the high kick, and it landed flush. And it's one of the most beautiful combinations you'll ever see. And Cerrone has some nice wrestling in his back pocket as well. He's got a nice driving double that he'll use to mix in. He'll finish it with a knee tap, cut the angle to really finish it off, and he usually gets the opponent down. I think he has a very high takedown rate, but, he just has underrated wrestling as a whole. And Alex Morono, he doesn't have the best takedown defense. He usually looks for that guillotine, which, often leaves him on bottom. He caught a few people with it at the start of his UFC career, but since then, it's just left him on bottom and allowed opponents to get on top, and for long periods of time, he can be controlled on the mat. He does seem, he accepts bottom position with quite little resistance, and he can be controlled for long periods of time off his back. So that's a bit of a problem. But how these guys win fights, so for Alex Morono, he has high output. Also, he's he's quite tough. He's hard to finish. But for Cerrone, he's very experienced. You're not going to put him in a situation that he hasn't already been in. Also, Cerrone has a nice kicking game. That's stood the test of time. So, yeah. How these guys lose fights. So for Cerrone, he's a slow starter. He often drops the first round, and that can be a bit of a burden, to say the least, in 3-round fights especially. I know he's used to fighting main events, but this is a 3-round fight, so if you drop the first round, you're going to either need a finish or you're going to need to win the next 2 rounds. But he seems to be working on that a little bit, but still, it's just his natural style. And he also seems to have a little bit of a weakness to the body. He's been finished a few times there, so if you hit him good to the body, he seems to really feel it. And for Alex Morono, he tends to slow after 1.5 rounds in high-paced fights. He'll fight through the fatigue though, but you can tell he's feeling it, and his body language doesn't look great. Also, this fight's short notice. He didn't have a fight book before this. How's his gas tank going to hold up? I think this is very short notice too. It's not just short notice. It's like 6 days notice. So, yeah. I'm not sure how his cardio is going to look, because he generally does slow in fights and often loses the 3rd round. So, yeah. I also feel like he's a little bit stiff on the feet, and I find his reaction times really slow in the striking. Like, when he goes for counters, he'll miss by like a meter, or he'll miss by like half a second, which is crazy. But yeah, you just see him hit air so often. I think his striking accuracy is like 40%. So I just think he's just not he just doesn't have the fastest reflexes. You know what I mean? It's fine. Like, he has a style that doesn't really rely on his reflexes, but if you do back him up and you start feinting a lot, try to bring out the counter left hook of his, then you can really see how slow his reaction time really is. Also, his chin's looked a little bit suspect lately. Like, he's been getting hurt pretty much every fight, put out a few times. Yeah, I've got a few question marks about it. Also, his poor takedown defense. So, past a victory for these guys. So, for Cerrone, I think he should take advantage of that poor takedown defense. I think he should mix in his takedowns, get some top control. Alex can be a little too comfortable off his back. But yeah, I think the driving double, when Alex squares his stance as he's advancing, I think you could really hit him with that a few times. Also, just on the feet, keep it at distance, use the jab. Morono doesn't have great head movement, so just pop the jab out. Leg kicks to slow the footwork of Morono. Also the lead leg body kick under the high guard of Morono. And for Morono, look for forward pressure early, because Cerrone is a slow starter, so you really want to put the pressure on him early. Also look to hit the body in the pocket. As I said before, he has a weakness to the body, for sure. Alright, so how is the fight going? Yeah, so this is a great short notice replacement fight. Both these guys have that dog in them. Should be a war. On the feet, I believe the kicking game of Cerrone is going to give Morono a few problems, and if Cerrone gets the range on his jab, I think it could be a huge weapon here, as Morono barely moves his head, has such slow reaction time to the jab. I think he could really hurt him, or touch him up with the jab, pretty much. If Morono straightens his punches up, then I believe he has a shot, but if he just comes in swinging wild like he usually does, then I think Cowboy's straight punches are just going to beat him to the punch, and he's just going to get lit up with the jab and the 1-2 pretty much. I'm not too worried about Cowboy being washed or anything like that. Like, he's proven to be still competitive with the top guys, let alone the mid-tier guys like a Nico Price or a Alex Morono per se. I get that Cerrone didn't look great in the Price fight, but, Nico is very awkward. He's very long too, so no one ever really has an easy fight with Nico Price. And yeah, with Cerrone's durability and his chin, he's only been put out by Till, Connor, and Masvidal. So yeah, all those guys are big power punches. Morono puts a lot behind his strikes, but I don't think he has too much natural power, so I don't think he's going to murk Cerrone or anything like that. I think Cerrone's going to be able to take the shots. Also, Cerrone does have underrated timing on his takedowns, and Morono doesn't have good takedown defense. Like, I know for a fact that Cerrone could just take Morono down and just control him on the mat really easily. And maybe Cerrone will choose that path, if he's in the mindset of thinking that he desperately needs a win to prove to the UFC that he's still competitive in, at this level. Or is he in the mindset that he has one foot out the door and he just wants to put on a few more entertaining fights for the fans. Because recently he's been shooting a lot more takedowns than usual, and he sounds like he wants to keep fighting. A win here would, allow him to keep fighting at the UFC. I bet they'd give him another contract if he gets a win here. Honestly, yeah. All in all, I think it'll be semi-competitive, but Cerrone is just like clearly the winner, that type of fight. Probably a 30-27 or a 29-28, but a convincing 2-1 for Cerrone. If he gets off the mark slow, then I think he might drop the first round. But yeah, I could also see a finish with a set-up high kick or something like that from Cerrone, but, I'd love a vintage high kick from Cerrone finish, but, I feel like he takes the path of least resistance here, so I think he might use his wrestling, honestly. But yeah, let's have a look at the betting lines. Alright, so this is Parimatch. This is a Russian-Ukrainian bookie, and these guys just pump out odds really quick. These guys pump out odds early, so this is where I check first to see if I want to have a look at an upcoming line, or if, because generally the odds that they put up, they're very similar to the ones that the American bookies adopt when they do open their lines themselves. So I do think they have a look at this one first. And they've got Cerrone at, quite a sizable favourite, around 60-65%. And I agree with it, honestly. I had it smack bang on $1.59 or -170. I think he should be that much of a favourite. And yeah, I think I agree with the line, honestly. I wouldn't bet Morono at that price for sure. And I think if I can get Cerrone at like -145 or $1.70, then I'd probably hit that as well. Just a little bit, because, it is Donald Cerrone in 2021, so, don't put too much into it. But I also feel like this fight does go the distance, and a few of Cerrone's most recent fights have gone the distance as well. And Morono is very durable, and a lot of his fights go the distance too. So if I get going the distance at like +180 or +200, fingers crossed, then I'd probably hit that as well, or $3 or $2.80 for the Australian, UK, or whoever else uses the decimal system for their bets. But I'd probably hit that, and also just like a live bet, just an auto live bet. If Cerrone doesn't look great in the first round, but he looks like he's kind of finding his groove late, or Morono has a decent first round but is looking a little flat and looks like he seems to be tiring a little bit, then I'd just hit Cerrone live at probably like anything above $1.70 or -145. So yeah, because generally Morono's best round is round 1, and Cerrone is a slow starter, so I'm expecting the line to be somewhat like that. So if you want to wait for that, then maybe you might get a better line than what you have here. But yeah, that's what I think of the fight.